She never imagined the woman destroying her marriage would be the friend she trusted most. When she opened that bedroom door and saw her husband kissing her best friend, her heart shattered. But instead of screaming, crying, or confronting them, she quietly closed the door and made a decision that changed everything. Claire had always believed that some people were meant to stay in your life forever. For her, Daniel was that person. He was the man she had married after years of knowing each other, the man she believed would stand beside her through every difficult season of life. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but Claire believed it was strong. They had built a comfortable home together, shared countless memories, and survived difficult moments that had only made her believe they understood each other better. And then there was Vanessa. Vanessa wasn't just Claire's best friend, she was practically family. The two women had known each other for years. They celebrated birthdays together, shared secrets, supported each other through difficult days, and laughed about memories that nobody else understood. Claire trusted Vanessa so completely that she never considered the possibility that Vanessa could ever hurt her. In fact, Claire had often told Daniel that she was lucky to have someone like Vanessa in her life. Daniel would smile whenever Claire said it, but what Claire didn't know was that something had already begun changing. At first, the changes were so small that Claire barely noticed them. Daniel started coming home later than usual. Sometimes he would say he had been caught up with work. Other times he blamed traffic or an unexpected meeting. His explanations sounded reasonable, and Claire didn't want to become the kind of wife who questioned every minute of her husband's day. Then Daniel started protecting his phone. He had never been particularly secretive before. His phone would sit on the kitchen counter for hours. Claire could pick it up to check something without him reacting. Now everything was different. If a message arrived, Daniel would immediately look at it. If Claire entered the room while he was using his phone, he sometimes locked the screen. Claire noticed she just didn't want to believe what her instincts were telling her. One evening, she casually asked him if everything was okay. Daniel looked at her and smiled. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? Claire shrugged. I don't know, you've just seemed distracted lately. Daniel reached for her hand and told her she was overthinking everything. Those words temporarily calmed her. Maybe she really was imagining things. Maybe Daniel was simply stressed. Maybe every marriage went through periods when two people became busy and disconnected. Claire wanted to believe that. Then Vanessa started appearing around Daniel more often. Whenever Claire invited Vanessa over, Daniel seemed unusually interested in their conversations. Vanessa would laugh at something Daniel said, and Claire would occasionally notice a strange familiarity between them. Nothing obvious, nothing she could accuse anyone of, just little moments. One afternoon, Vanessa mentioned something about Daniel's work schedule. Claire stopped. How did you know he had that meeting? Vanessa hesitated for half a second. Daniel mentioned it. Claire smiled, but something inside her felt uncomfortable. She hadn't known about the meeting herself. Still, she didn't question it. After all, Vanessa was her best friend. Why would she suspect her? Weeks passed. Daniel became even more distant. He stopped asking Claire about her day. Conversations that once lasted for hours became short exchanges. He seemed physically present but emotionally somewhere else. Claire tried harder. She cooked his favorite meals. She suggested weekend plans. She tried to bring back the closeness they once had. But every attempt seemed to make the distance more obvious. Then came the night that changed everything. Daniel told Claire he needed to stay late at work. Claire believed him. At least she believed him until the next morning when she accidentally noticed something that didn't make sense. A message on Daniel's phone mentioned a location he claimed he had never visited. When Claire asked about it, Daniel quickly dismissed the question. She didn't argue. Instead, she began paying attention. For the first time, Claire stopped accepting every explanation simply because she wanted it to be true. She noticed patterns. Daniel was lying about certain evenings. Vanessa was suddenly unavailable whenever Claire wanted to meet her. And somehow, the two of them always seemed to know things about each other that Claire wasn't aware of. Claire began feeling like a stranger inside her own marriage. Then, one evening, she came home earlier than expected. She wasn't supposed to be home yet. Daniel thought she would be out for several more hours. The house was quiet. Claire walked inside and immediately noticed something unusual. There was another pair of shoes near the entrance, women's shoes. She recognized them, they belonged to Vanessa. For several seconds, Claire simply stood there. Her mind began searching for explanations. Maybe Vanessa had come to surprise her. Maybe Daniel had invited her over because Claire wasn't home. Maybe there was a perfectly innocent reason. Claire desperately wanted there to be one. She slowly walked through the house. Her heart began beating faster. She reached the bedroom door. It was partially closed. Claire placed her hand on the handle, then she opened it, and everything stopped. Daniel was there, Vanessa was there. And they were kissing. Claire didn't scream, she didn't throw anything, she didn't ask why. She simply stood in the doorway, staring at the two people she had trusted more than almost anyone in the world. Vanessa saw her first. Her expression changed instantly. Daniel turned around. For a moment, nobody moved. Claire looked at Daniel, then she looked at Vanessa, and somehow in that terrible moment the truth became clearer than it had ever been. The late nights, the secret messages, the strange conversations, the excuses, the distance, all of it suddenly made sense. Claire slowly stepped backward. Daniel said her name. Claire. She didn't answer. She quietly closed the door, then she walked outside. She got into her car and sat there without starting the engine. For several minutes she simply stared through the windshield. Tears eventually filled her eyes. Not because she hadn't suspected something, but because the truth was far worse than anything she had imagined. Daniel had betrayed her, but Vanessa had betrayed her too, and somehow the second betrayal hurt even more. Claire remembered all the times she had defended Vanessa. All the secrets she had shared, all the times she had trusted her inside her home. She remembered telling Vanessa that she considered her family. Now she wondered how long Vanessa had been laughing behind her back. Daniel called repeatedly. Claire didn't answer. Vanessa called too. Claire ignored her. Everyone expected Claire to explode, but Claire made a different decision. She decided she wanted the truth, all of it, not just the part she had witnessed. She wanted to know how long it had been happening, how deep the betrayal went, and whether anything else in her life had been built on lies. So instead of confronting them immediately, Claire began quietly putting the pieces together. She paid attention to dates. She remembered conversations. She looked at the timeline of Daniel's unexplained absences. She compared the stories he had told her with what she was slowly discovering. And the more she learned, the worse it became. The kiss hadn't been a one-time mistake. Daniel and Vanessa had been secretly involved for months. Claire discovered that Vanessa had known about Daniel's schedule, his frustrations, and even private arguments between Claire and Daniel. That realization crushed her, because Claire suddenly remembered something. Months earlier, she had complained to Vanessa about feeling disconnected from Daniel. She had cried while telling her best friend that she was afraid her marriage was falling apart. Vanessa had comforted her, or at least Claire had thought she was comforting her. Now Claire understood something horrifying. Vanessa had been listening to her pain while becoming closer to the man responsible for it. Vanessa hadn't simply entered Claire's marriage, she had known exactly where Claire was vulnerable, and she had used it. Claire also began remembering Vanessa's comments. She had once told Claire that Daniel didn't appreciate her enough. Another time, she had suggested Claire spend more time away from home. There had been countless small comments that Claire had ignored because they came from someone she trusted. Now every memory looked different. What she had once considered concern now looked like manipulation. Eventually, Claire decided it was time to confront Daniel. She waited until he came home. Daniel looked nervous the moment he saw her. He knew she wasn't going to pretend nothing had happened. Claire sat across from him. I saw you. Daniel lowered his eyes. Claire, I can explain. She shook her head. I don't want excuses. Daniel tried to tell her that things had become complicated. He said the relationship had started as an emotional connection. He said he had been confused. He said the kiss was a mistake. Claire listened quietly, then she asked one question. How long have you been choosing her over me? Daniel didn't answer immediately. That silence told Claire everything. Eventually, he admitted it had been going on for months. Claire felt something inside her break, not because she hadn't known, but because hearing him admit it made the betrayal real. She looked at him and realized she had spent months trying to save a marriage that Daniel had already stopped protecting. Then Claire asked something else. Did Vanessa know what you were doing to me? Daniel hesitated. She knew. Claire closed her eyes. That answer hurt more than she expected. Vanessa knew. She knew Claire was struggling. She knew Claire was hurting, and she still continued. At that moment, Claire understood something important. She didn't need to compete with Vanessa. She didn't need to prove she was better. She didn't need to convince Daniel to choose her. A person who truly loved and respected her wouldn't have put her in that position, so Claire stopped asking why they had chosen each other. Instead, she started asking herself why she had spent so much of her life trying to keep people who were willing to lose her. That question changed everything. Claire quietly began preparing for her future. She organized her finances. She gathered important documents. She spoke with someone she trusted and made sure she understood her options. Most importantly, she stopped allowing Daniel's decisions to determine her worth. Daniel noticed the change. He began asking whether there was still a chance for them. Claire didn't give him the answer he wanted. For the first time, Daniel realized that Claire wasn't waiting for him to make a decision. She had already started making her own. Then Claire decided to meet Vanessa. Vanessa arrived nervous. She looked at Claire with tears in her eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you." Claire stared at her. "Then why did you?" Vanessa couldn't answer. She tried to explain that feelings had developed. She said she had never planned for things to become what they became. Claire listened. Then she said something Vanessa never expected. "You didn't steal my husband. He chose to betray me, and you chose to help him." Vanessa began crying, but Claire didn't raise her voice. She didn't insult her. She simply told her that their friendship was over, not because Claire hated her, but because trust once destroyed could not always be rebuilt. Claire walked away from that conversation feeling strangely lighter. The next few months were difficult. There were lonely nights. There were moments when Claire questioned whether she had made the right decision. There were memories that returned without warning. Sometimes she missed the life she thought she had. But eventually, Claire understood that she wasn't grieving the marriage she had. She was grieving the marriage she believed she had. Those were two very different things. Daniel eventually realized what he had lost. He tried to reach Claire more than once. He apologized. He promised he had changed. But Claire no longer needed promises. She had learned that words were easy, trust was harder. Vanessa eventually tried to contact Claire too. Claire didn't respond, not because she wanted revenge, but because she had finally learned that protecting her peace was more important than reopening old wounds. Months later, Claire's life looked completely different. She rebuilt relationships she had neglected. She started doing things she had once postponed. She became more independent, more confident, and most importantly, she stopped measuring her value by whether someone else chose her. One evening, Claire thought about that night again. The night she opened the bedroom door. For a long time she had considered that moment the worst moment of her life, but eventually she saw it differently. Opening that door hadn't destroyed her life, it had revealed the truth. And closing it quietly had been the beginning of her taking control. Everyone expected Claire to scream. Everyone expected revenge. Everyone expected her to fight Vanessa or beg Daniel for an explanation. Instead, she did something far more powerful. She walked away. She chose herself. She refused to let two people's betrayal become the definition of her future, and that was the part nobody expected. Because the woman who quietly closed that bedroom door was not the same woman who eventually walked away from that marriage. She had entered that room believing she had lost everything. She walked away realizing she had finally discovered what she should never have been willing to lose: herself. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy your life. Sometimes it destroys the illusion that was keeping you trapped. And sometimes the most powerful response isn't revenge. It's rebuilding your life so completely that the people who hurt you no longer have any power over the person you become.